Welcome to Work Hacker Podcasts. I'm Chris Hellman, and I have with me today Ois Yusuf.
Hey everyone.
Today we'll be talking about uh, AI from the hiring manager's perspective and how we have been using it, as well as talking about interviews, soft, hard skills, and overall helping individuals become better candidates. There's so many topics out there about people, and how they're having to battle AI. And I think what I've seen, and I don't know about you, Ois, if you see the same, where people are very confused on like, well, what do I do? What are like now that AI is a part of the world of searching, jobs hunting, like what are hiring managers looking for? And I think, the fact that we use AI think this is, we wanted to create this little video so that we could sort of maybe share some of our insights, thoughts around how we see the candidates coming in and what ends up happening from our perspective. And hopefully this will gain some insight to anyone who is looking for a job and very frustrated with the AI that is potentially filtering them out, approaches that they can take to try to be seen. What are your thoughts, host?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, and we see this all the time as we're getting multiple opportunities from folks to help to use our sort of services to help them find people, right? That we're using AI, as you said, pretty on the go, on the fly, and I think just having to use it a lot made us sort of see some of the things. And what I typically tend to see is like keywords are really important. I think and this is something that not just us or from our perspective, I think it's just talked about in general too, as things are going more AI focused. I think it's helpful for candidates to really make sure that they're very detailed in their language. I think the whole concept around, sure, there should be I think at least, that there should be a one pager, uh, just a summary of what the resume that anyone would pick up and actually needs to read. That's fine. But to appease the AI side of things, I think it would be helpful for anyone to sort of have more details around opportunities and jobs where I've seen it help because if I ask the AI that out of these 10 resumes, this is the job description, this is kind of what I need. Please filter out and tell me who's the best fit for this role. The person who has given a lot of examples and case scenarios, especially like not just the more detail, but detail specifically around different projects that they've done, right, will appease to the AI more and naturally get selected better.
Yep.
So yeah, having proper readable, very easy, distinguishable, that this is the amount of time that they've spent on certain projects. These are the kind of projects that they've done would be
I
helpful.
think now more than ever, so many people think, oh well, I worked at this place, I worked at Deloitte, I worked at McDonald's, I worked at some very large level organization that just by putting that there is going to raise attention to the individuals looking at the resume. And the reality is actually, if you're not putting in those details in those descriptors, it gets passed up. Why? Because McDonald's or Deloitte or um, uh, Best Buy or any of these big organizations, uh, those aren't what the AI is looking for. They're looking for specific skill sets that are associated with the role that they're looking for, and so that is one of the biggest pieces that I've seen where, yeah, you'll get some of these high profile individuals who have a lot of experience, but don't write anything on their resume about what is it that they actually did, what is it that is actually related to this role that they've applied for. And so, yeah, by default, it almost gets pushed aside and it doesn't get considered even from the get-go. And I think the big
Yeah.
important reason to like state this, for a lot of people is that why are people like us doing this is because we have a very small team and we are having hundreds of resumes coming through, and it's based on the time of which we need to be able to get those resumes in. be able to parse them out and get them in front of our clients, it's a very short window. So we have to leverage now more than ever those AIs to be the AI agents to be able to help us understand who are the best individuals, that we can present in front of our clients very quickly. I think
Mm-hmm.
another piece that I keep on thinking about is we of course are an agency where not only we of course look for our own talent, but we also look at helping our clients get staff their talent. But if you look at inside organizations as a whole, and you think about this, when I was at BCG, I mean, the name brand of BCG, we would be getting hundreds and hundreds of applications coming through for any given role. And when you looked at the actual amount of uh, recruiters that were essentially supporting us, versus the roles that they were being hired, I mean, it was very limited, in terms of what amount of time they had to be able to parse through all those resumes that were coming through. So even they, so like this isn't just a part of an agency. I mean, this is also with inside any organization. The smaller the organization, there's a less amount of people who are actively able to spend time and sit and look through individual resumes. And so those are
Mm-hmm.
things that, you really have to consider when you're applying. And yeah, I mean, I'm the first one to say that if you aren't today leveraging your own AI to help better align your resume based on the skills, um, yeah, I mean, it's you're sort of doing yourself a disservice. One, as we continue going in AI, this like building out these AI agents, the more you as an individual need to understand how these tools work. And so by even helping it, like having it help you craft that resume, that right resume, to be able to get through the door to have the conversation. Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, once there's someone like we get them through the door, we have the conversation, we do the vetting from that perspective, it's a whole nother ball game. The resume, it was just a means to an end to get through the door, to have the conversation, then for us to then run our assessments to make sure that you are actually who you say you are, that you are actually have the skill sets that are required that we need to then vet. But again, it's essentially that window, like your resume is that window, and you are up against hundreds of other people who are applying for that same role. And so it
Mm-hmm.
is a game. It is in many ways a game. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Your thoughts?
No,
Yeah.
so, yeah, you're 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 absolutely right. I think to your point, using your own AI prompt engineering to the point where you are getting all of those details in, because essentially, like if we just break down our process, right? We are collecting information from the client. Okay, there's a first general job description that they would give us. Then we'll have a conversation and ask, okay, what kind of project do you need it for? What will be your best person that would fit the role in your eyes to be like the best person for this job? What kind of prior background work? Okay, they will be short in engineering in particular languages, but what kind of industries have they worked in? Because there'll be some sort of nuances, industry specific, that they'll be have a better handle on, and therefore would be able to better achieve whatever the role requires. So getting that information from the client, then getting information from the candidates once they apply with their resume. Sure, there's that part we just fill out. We have questionnaires that we send over where we're scoring them and figuring out who fits the bill in different pieces, and then using the AI to filter some of the stuff as well, but then asking the right questions from them and getting those details. So, the resume has to be aligned and be able to capture all that to get through the door. If the agency, whoever you're working with, or if you're even appearing, because a lot of people ask these questions even direct to hire as well, directly to companies. I think it's helpful to be very detailed. I mean, my eye catches. I know people say, oh, it has to be short and sweet, and you don't want to glaze over all of that, but I actually attract to those questionnaires and details where there is a lot more detail. I'm like, okay, he'd really spend the time to really fill that out. Okay, let me actually spend the time to read it as well. So yes, there is the AI, but I think sometimes it's easier to just read through quickly as well, and then you just, okay, select, and you're like putting them through. So I guess the reason for me to break this down is that more detail and all of that is really helpful, because we're getting some information from the client, and if your resume and your questionnaires and everything has those pieces, uh, that gets you to the next step of actually having that conversation, even being at a point where you are, just being able to leverage your position much more easier when it comes to the salary part,
Yep.
right? I think if you presented yourself from the get-go really well, then you're at a good stage to start off those
That
conversations.
that brings a really good point, Ois, where effort. I mean, in the end, yes, you can leverage the AI, but I mean, in the end, the individuals that we tend to choose time and time again put time and effort into making sure that they stood out among the rest. Period. Um, I again, I've seen the resumes come through where it's very little effort. Again, big profile companies, but I have not been inclined to even just like if I've haven't used an AI agent, uh, I'm not inclined to talk to them, especially if the next resume was someone who had more detailed skills broken down, who come from a SMB size company with proven examples of like why are they the best person, why is it that they can be the right person to fit this role. I'm more inclined to want to push them forward because they actually took the effort to make sure that they described what their skill sets are. And again, what ends up happening is the more effort that you do put into your resume and you do put towards that role, the more, even from an AI agent perspective, the more likely you are to be chosen, and not filtered out. Again, we are. I mean, I think if we go back to the roots of who we are as a society, we are a society of communication. The less you communicate, the less, or the less you communicate, the lower the chances of you successfully getting into that next role that you're looking for, or even getting a job in the beginning if you've been, unfortunately, with this current environment, laid off. Um, you take the time, you take the breath, you say, who am I and what values I can deliver, and really be able to articulate that. It And then, even to that point, yeah, leverage any AI, Copilot, ChatGPT to say, hey, okay, these are my skills. Here's my approach. How does this align with this job requirement? Because even to this point, I'm like, if it doesn't, I mean, my goodness, is how many people apply that aren't even related to the role. Frankly, you're wasting our time. You're wasting your own time because you haven't even taken
Yeah.
time to see if you're aligned with a job
Yeah.
that you were applying to. And I don't think that's good use of your time, just applying, 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 and hoping that if you have a mediocre resume, that you'll actually hit something. Um, Again,
Mm-hmm.
quality, the amount of time you put in and show that your skills have value, the more likely you are to at least get into, again, your goal is to get on a call with one of us. Because the minute you get on a call,
Mm-hmm.
things change, and then we can have conversations, and the holistic you becomes much more seen. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a very important factor.
Yeah, yeah, and we're not saying that go and use ChatGPT and get away with like everything, because I've like many times I could just tell the emojis and everything that comes along with it and the language that ChatGPT puts it on. I just feel like it's sure you're using ChatGPT, but be mindful. Actually, read through the whole stuff that's being put in. If it is actually authentic, or if you've asked ChatGPT, like make sure you read this job description, look at my resume, make sure I'm a fit, and ChatGPT will just have a go at it and like make you a fit, but they will put stuff in that doesn't really align. Like I've seen resumes where resumes are very sparse and stuff, but the questionnaires are very, and I could tell with the emojis and everything else, it's just ChatGPT generated. And those, then I'm like, I don't want to waste my time. So it has to be very aligned with everything, the whole picture that you're putting in front of the person. And as Chris said, we don't we don't have the time. So just putting in a call and having that 30-minute conversations, and I have to talk to 15 people a day, it takes up the time. So I want to make sure I'm wise with my time, and I put in the conversations where I'll have a better opportunity to find the right person and close it and send it across and close this thing faster.
Now, I'd like to shift over to a topic of like when it comes down to like soft skills and hard skills. Now, I will be the first to say, in terms of like what do you prioritize, what's the most important. I'm the first to say, from my perspective, coming from BCG, uh, soft skills are something that I hold highly. And the reason why I hold very highly soft skills, it's not that the hard skills aren't have to be there. Hard, you have to show proof of that you can actually do the job that is being asked of you. But the soft skills, the reason why I hold that even higher when it comes down to hiring is because it's how do you work with others? Like when you're working with a client, how do you um, interact with them? How do you treat others? Again, personally feel, I have strong values that, I are moral values that I hold highly. This is the kind of organization, this is the kind of people that I want to work with. And so if you don't hold, like, if you're not able to have those conversations, you're not able to have um, that strong communication, it hinders the overall process that you need for your job and to even help move forward an organization. And so when I hired for BCG, I mean, and I was primarily hiring a lot of designers. I knew that at BCG that if I just hired a designer that had the hard skills, that showed incredible talent from a design perspective, um, and then I put them into that type of environment, and I interviewed them, and they could barely explain why they did a design choice. They couldn't even explain like uh, how how they came to a conclusion of choosing, this experience over another experience. Um, I knew that they would just get ripped apart with inside the organization and would not benefit them as an individual. And it only, in many ways, get them, hurt their career as a whole, because they would have been essentially eaten up and chewed and spit out. And so I knew that, one of the big, being in that organization, having those soft skills, being able to communicate was so key in success. And I do take that to any other organization. I do see that if you are a strong communicator, but maybe you're a little weaker on certain skill sets and certain hard skills, that for the most part, you tend to be a very big, problem solver, and you're able to then be given a challenge and be able to arise and learn from that challenge and learn new things. So you know, from my experience, I personally hold soft skills very highly. And yeah, Ois, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, when it comes to soft skills, like usually some of the complaints that we hear, right? Not a good communicator, not a good communicator. In this digital world of, and we do a lot of offshore, so offshore folks and like people in different countries and stuff, all we're hanging by is communication, right? That's the thread that we're hanging by. So, and a lot of the times, as you start those conversations as a candidate, let's say, and you're just setting the stage for what your tenure with this client is going to be like. So having and sometimes it's just nerves, sometimes it's just as easy as doing whatever calms you down, doing it that right, like before Chris and I got on this conversation, we're like, okay, are we in the right mood, right mindset? Do we want to do this? Okay, we're good. Caffeinated, we're set. We psyched ourselves up. So like having that mindset is really important, right? Talk to a friend or something, get those nerves out of the way. Don't let that hold you back. Sometimes I've gotten in those conversations where I'm so nervous, or just like the stage has been set and I'm not in the mindset where I'm hearing myself more than hearing the other person what they're asking. And then when my answer comes, it's not aligned with what they've asked. So just being always, psyching yourself into being prepared for the conversation is super important, because you might hold things back that, had you not, would have really made you through the door and faster. So, and that's kind of where we come in as well, because we've been through so many of these conversations, right? We, like, before putting somebody in front of the client, we've already had these, and actually filtered through all of them to figure out, okay, this is a good fit because of X, Y, and Z. We prepare them as well. Like, here's, what they're really looking for and stuff. So, is this what you have? And if so, what are those experiences? Okay, can you highlight them further, make those notes, send them over to the client so that they're even prepared, and the conversations are then easier. Okay, this is exactly what we're looking for. Let me ask him specifically about this one thing that he did and how he did it. And so that just makes it, the whole thing, move faster. So from a candidate's perspective, yes, having those, really, like, taking everything seriously, like from the resume point to the questionnaire to all the way up to the conversations, the interview conversations, communication, that's all there is. That's key.
Part of communication is also listening. I think that's where, which is what's important about this story. And when you're doing good communication, you're also listening. You're an active listener. You actually take in what questions are being asked of you, and being able to come back with an answer that is meaningful, that has value. And the story that I had with a designer that we were trying to hire, or we were interviewing for a position, was I was asking them a very complex question, a real scenario, work scenario, which is being given an Excel spreadsheet, told no context of what that data actually meant, but only being requested to create data visualization solutions out of that. Now, what were we looking for from the candidate? Is to start talking about, okay, they're going to come back and ask, well, what was this data used for? Who's the persona? Like, how is this scenario? What does the data actually mean? What is, like, if you were to actually take this and apply it to a business scenario, what's the business scenario and how does it have an outcome? Those are the questions that we wanted someone to start asking first. This one individual did not hear any of that and started talking about icons, how icons meant everything and icons could solve the world's problems. And one of the things, and I mean, it was just one of those moments where you're like, did you not listen to what we were actually asking? Like, did you not, take a minute? Now, I get that in the interview process, it's very high stress. I mean, we've all been there,
Yeah.
but I think one of the, the biggest challenges, and hey, when I was younger, same thing happened, is instead of just taking some deep breaths, taking time, and also it's okay to pause and just say, hey, like, that's a really interesting question. um I need to take a moment to, like, think through. Can you, even just be able to have some follow-up questions to the question, so that you can even understand a little bit more about how you can best answer it. Those become very important skills to think about as you're doing these interview processes, because again, a lot of questions are intended to stump you. They're intended to put you into a scenario and see how you react. And it's okay to ask questions. It's okay. The whole idea is get your best understanding of it, absorb that, absorb your understanding, and then with confidence start talking about what you would do. Now, one of the big things that I learned uh, at BCG was, after you give the scenario of how you would solve this problem or answer this question, you would then turn around and said, did I understand your question correctly? And the reason why that's important is because maybe you didn't. And if you didn't, the interviewer will then say, well, no, I didn't. And then you can follow up and saying, okay, well, what was it that I didn't understand in terms of your question? Could you better clarify? That allows you to do is get more information. The more information you get, the better you can have a solution that you can take back to the table. Now, granted, sometimes you've never dealt with the scenario that's been given to you. And so you can only give your best understanding of that scenario. And that's sort of what happens with life. But by having the follow-ups, by having sort of getting the interviewer to sort of talk about what's going on and why they were asking this question, can then even give you insights or give you opportunities to have follow-ups, to even have to show that. I think the better way of putting it is to show that you are a problem solver, to show that
Mm.
you may not have gotten this question right, but you'll get it right next time. And that is one huge key that I personally look for when I look for individuals. I can't say that for every hiring manager
Mhm.
out there because I've been through the process with others. And I think others tend to like either some ideology and, yada, yada. I rather you have some out of the box creative solution. Why? Because frankly, in this world with AI, how do you beat AI? Like, how do you become the outlier of that? Am I wrong, Lois?
Yep. No, absolutely. So, like as you were walking through this, it was I was getting some nostalgia, and I was going back into my time of interviewing with it. And I recall that my thing was like, and I see this now too as being on the other side of the table, that after all of those conversations, sure, you're taking notes and you're doing all of that and you're collecting data to like make mindful decisions of who you're going to put forward and if it's going to be successful because you're on the line as well, your reputation and everything. But also what is really important is the emotion of it all. That's what you human beings, we things where emotions are involved, we're more receptive to them, more, put them in our longer term memory and are able to recall it fast. Like with this emotion, I'm going to able to recall it faster. And I think what my strategy used to be was always ending on a good note. So in your example that you were just giving, even if you don't know, and let's say you're asking the questions, always be honest, of course. Always ask like, hey, this is this. And if it's really not something that you've dealt with, be honest about that. But you can pivot a little bit in sense of, oh, here's something I've done something similar. I don't know if it's also appropriate to
Yep.
the job, but I'd imagine it might be. And here's how I solved that. And also then, is this role require these sort of things so that they can almost like pivot and then lead the conversation a little bit to ask them as to what uh, else is there, and sort of end on a higher note where you're like, I did X, Y, and Z, the star situation that we all, like end with the result part, and this is what I did and that was the outcome. And also, sure, I haven't done that, but I'm confident because I've done X, Y, and Z. This should not be. It should be an easy win for me, And I will remember that. I'll remember that conversation. And be like, okay, it's like that was pretty good. Versus just leaving it just on oh, I'm sorry, I haven't done it. I that's what I used to do, and I think sitting on the other side, I when I'm looking down in my notes and stuff, and the name pops up that I had a great conversation with, immediately I'm biased towards like putting that person up first. Oh, I had a really good feeling, and I know they're gonna just really kill like it's gonna be awesome
Yep.
when I put it
Yep.
in front of the client.
I think
Hmm.
the last thing I'd like to on this topic say is that I know we sort of went into the interview process of everything. Um, but we're all humans, no matter how much money you make. I think that was one thing that I've learned in my time working with very high level executives, that no one actually has all the answers. A lot of times they're looking for someone to come in with answers or with the confidence that they can find the answer. And I think when you come in with that kind of perspective of like, okay, you know, this individual that I'm interviewing may not have all the answers, but they may also, they have their own experiences, they have their own expectations of the specific role, but they also know what they don't know. And at least a good leader knows what they don't know. And what they then look for is that, okay, do I have someone who's going to come in who, yeah, may not have the answer either, but has the confidence and ability to find that answer. And I think that's a key differentiator when I look at when I interview, talent, is I want to know like maybe they don't have the answer right now, but I know I have the confidence that they will find that answer. And that I feel is a very big key standout moment for any candidate that we interview with.
Absolutely, absolutely. One other thing that just it reminds me of, as I'm sitting on the other side, and I've been on both sides, as we all have been, right? Um, it's I don't like hearing, "Oh, but I'm, looking forward to learn." I don't know why. I know it's like something that people like say, "Oh, you should say that, so you're eager and stuff." But to your point about like somebody to come in knowing all the answers, and hearing that might not make me might make me deprioritize him, frankly. And I would rather look for, oh, I haven't done this, and then I've done X, Y, and Z, and this is just how the journey is, and I've been able to easily apply the same concepts here, and it should be a day's read, and I should be pretty up to speed
Yeah,
on it. Like it's
I
just
think
like giving
it's
that confidence part.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's not about
yeah.
how or like you said, the general statement, I'm willing to learn. Okay, we're all willing to learn. But I think to your point, it's well, how would you learn? How would you actually go about it? Like you said, is hey, this is not an area that I'm confident in, but I know that, if I do XYZ, um, and like I'm right now just trying to think of a real life scenario for me that we could I could reference. Um, I think, looking back at it, when I don't know something, I also really focus on, yeah, I mean, it goes back more to the process. Okay, we don't know, I don't know a particular um, uh, solution to a business problem. We'll leave it at that. Or even to this point. Actually, I'll take it even farther back. So when you look at building a new, you're working with a startup, and the startup doesn't even understand what their business concept is. The idea is like, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to come in, we're going to like actually go through the process of understanding all the business problems. What is the business trying to solve? What are like who's the target customer, consumer? Again, you go across the board, end user, if it's software, like who are you trying to solve this problem for? And I think, a lot of times in the working world, and again, depending on the job, a lot of people don't realize like even infrastructure, like you think about infrastructure, there is an end user, there is an end consumer. And like maybe it's not discussed all the time from an infrastructure perspective, but the reality is that if you have any instances that go down, if there's performance issues, guess what? There's a good chance that your client, your customer, your user is going to be reaching out and complaining. And so again, you take that sort of mentality to any business problem and say, okay, well, haven't actually done this. I haven't figured, I haven't done e-commerce. Let's just throw that out there. But we know e-commerce has an end user. We know e-commerce has certain business objectives that they need to be able to prove that they can sell XYZ of a product on the site, that they have XYZ of users that they want to actually target. Okay, you start from that. Now, what you do is like any consulting world, and maybe this is where you can sort of treat almost every job interview as a consulting engagement, because the idea is you're
Hmm.
coming in and you're solving a problem, and a
Yeah.
problem that no one else has solved. And you're coming in with your
Hmm.
expertise, your background expertise, and saying, I know based on my background expertise how to solve problems. And I go in and I say, okay, what is the business problem? Who are we trying to solve this for? And what is our overall business objective? And if you
Hmm.
focus on those pieces and you come together, again, it's a conversation that you have in a room. And then you go and say, okay,
Yeah.
hey, why don't we go about doing XYZ of a process to actually create a
Hmm.
solution? And I think those are like,
Hmm.
again, when you think about the interviewing process, when you do find you're in a moment where you may have never done it, but again, you just go back to, okay, I've never done this process before, but how would I do it? And I think that's, again,
Yep.
that's a big piece.
And like a good example, as you were looking thinking about examples, was for example, we need a Shopify developer, and I'm coming across somebody that's a big commerce developer. Now me and Chris, as somebody in the middle trying to siphon people out and stuff, we're not like as experienced in every technology, right? But of course we do our research and stuff, but at the same time, like having being able to like show that like immediately, if somebody tells me, oh, I've never dealt with Shopify, I know just and I know the client needs a Shopify developer, I'm like, I don't want to put my place my bet on him, right? But if the guy is, if it was me now that I've learned this side, I'd be like, oh, let me look at this. Okay, Shopify development, Chat GPT on the side. Okay, this is using the CSS and everything, the HTML side of things, and the functionality. Actually, BigCommerce is way more complicated. Shopify seems very user friendly. Actually, I think I could just, and some of the e-commerce facets of it are exactly the same. Actually, in BigCommerce, I've done more custom. So now immediately my mindset has shifted from me thinking, oh, he doesn't know, to like, oh, he's actually way more, and I actually need to put him forward. So just changing that pivoting over and like being showing that drive that, oh yeah, okay, well, we haven't done that, but let me have a quick look at this. Okay, we're having these conversations on the phone, on a call, or in front of the computer, right? Do you mind? Just give me a second. Okay. Oh yeah. Actually, you know what? This is kind of, it's not that bad. It's really,
Yeah.
and be honest, of course, because you have to actually do the work,
Yeah.
So not just say, just trying to win the conversation, but actually, this is true. BigCommerce is, very complicated sort of infrastructure for e-commerce websites. Shopify is way more simpler, user friendly. Anyone can make
Yep.
it. So, but if I didn't know that, I wouldn't know unless you explain it to me that, oh, okay, because of these, this is the reason. What does the client want again? Knowing who you're talking to. So I'm the person, if you're talking to an HR person, if you're talking to an agency, understanding who you're talking to, and then coming up with like, okay, so what does the client require? Okay, he needs to build, so there is an already built website. Got it. Okay, so if there's that built website, what does he need to make? Oh, so there's more custom. Okay, I've done customizations for now I want the sort of conversation. I ended on a strong note. I'm already sold that this guy is, it's like magic. He's gonna be awesome.
Yep.
So just having that psychological piece, asking the right questions, putting all of these small bits and pieces together to have those better conversations. You've already put yourself through the door. You're on the top of the funnel. Now it's the conversion part you
Yep.
need to focus on, and this is where the conversion comes in.
The I think this may be the last note that I would say. um, Within an interview, it is a sales process. You are selling yourself. There's a level where, practicing confidence. And again, I think there's a difference of like, you don't have to like, I mean, I've seen the ones where the snake oil, men, what was it? Going blank on the,
Snake
yeah,
oil.
the snake oil
Yeah,
sales.
snake
Yeah.
oil.
Snake oil salesman. So when you have a snake oil sale, like you don't have to be the snake oil salesman to come in and sell, yourself. You don't have to lie, you don't have to deceive. But I think it's more around coming in with the confidence in yourself. It really does make a difference. Just confidence in yourself. Yes, you may know that there's like two or three different ways to be able to tackle a solution, but also, but in if you don't come in with that confidence, it sounds like you're waffling. You're not committing. You're thinking, oh, this is, well, you could do it this way. Well, maybe, but you could also do it this way. I mean, that the lack of like confidence that you know what you do and you know how to do it definitely starts playing a factor. And then yet again, you lose the confidence in your interviewer. uh, if you come in with the confidence, now you can say, well, we can do it. We can use big commerce, but we could also use Shopify. Or if it is Shopify, you're like, well, have you thought of big commerce? Is your company like, how much are you looking to build in revenue? Like, what is your overall, is this an upgrade? What is your business objective? Again, now it's like, okay, you can have multiple solutions, and maybe Shopify is a better solution because they're a smaller company who doesn't need BigCommerce. But again, comes in with there are multiple. I am again. This is probably just the consultant in me and who I have been. There are multiple ways of solving a problem, and um, so in my mind, it's more about what is, it's about bringing in all the factors and saying, okay, I got all the factors. And so based on my information, this is how we go. This is how we can move forward. Um, Versus where I know some other people are like, well, no, there's only, they're only comfortable down a certain path. I mean, of like, well, you have to be the ridiculous expert in Shopify for anyone to commit with work with Shopify. I've done that. I mean, this is more to not to anyone who's applying, but this is more to hiring managers. I've gone down that route before where you have someone who's like ultra expert and turns out they weren't that great. Because they ran into problems. They couldn't think outside the box when it came to the business objective. They were so solely connected to the tool that they were the hard skill that they knew that they couldn't think outside the box to another solution when, say, you needed to integrate any API or API integrations or do things that are, outside of Shopify. They tended to struggle with thinking outside the box in those situations. So,
Yep, yep. And like to your point, like as I think about it, right? So it just made me think like the confidence itself, right? Because I've had those conversations in which I think it was just last week when I'm like, I know you're saying this, but I'm just asking you again and again because I'm just not fully convinced, to be honest. I know your resume says that, I know you're saying that, but it's just, are you like could you give me examples? Like, so I shouldn't have to ask that, but I was trying to be helpful at the same time. Like I know that I feel like you have it, but you're not really like I just the reason why I'm asking you, and this is just generally in psychology itself, like people ask again or repeat themselves because they don't feel
yep,
validated, right? And you need to validate that, oh yes I do. And sometimes the lack of confidence comes because you doubt yourself. So how do you remove that doubt? The doubt removal comes from asking those questions to the point where you feel confident enough. So how does that happen? The process is you ask the questions like, okay, what are you trying to achieve? Sure, I don't know this tool. Don't even say that. And first, like, okay, so could you help me understand, like, what is the organization trying to achieve? Okay, well, I mean, I spoke to them and they were like having this problem. They've been like struggling with it. They just need somebody to come in and, okay, well, what part? And oh, maybe you might be able to ask that question directly when I put you in front of the interview. But here's what they told me so far. And then the person says, oh, I see, okay, so this is kind of what they, and then now I'm confident because I have done this, so now I can speak to it, and then automatically the whole sort of light
yep,
shifts, the spotlight's on you
yep,
now. So getting to that point of getting that confidence, sometimes you might not be confident, and what we're saying is like push yourself to be like, okay, let me explore further. Let's not just, give up the cards right now. Let's figure out what are we trying to get to, right? And then you get to that confidence. So even if you're started the conversation, you're like automatically, I don't know what I put myself into, right? So then getting there to that point of like, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. Well, yeah, I've done 15 of those projects before. So that, that's no big deal. And now I know I'm going to put it in my email. So this guy has actually done 15 of them,
yep.
like X, Y, and Z.
No, confidence, it
Boom.
comes
Yeah.
through. You can see it. It makes a difference in terms of how you're hired and those opportunities that come your way.
Hmm. Hmm. Absolutely.
Perfect.
All right, everyone. Hope you guys got a lot of valuable information over here. Me and Chris, we just wanted to get together and try to see how we can add value, and if any of these conversations could help anybody succeed in their interviews, it'll be all worth it for us. So appreciate you joining in, and yeah,
Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next Work Hacker podcast.
see you
Bye.
guys.